You're very welcome back, and that was Columkill's Lament from the new CD by Vincent Kelly and the RTE Concert Orchestra with Mark Redmond on uilleann pipes, music of people and place, and it was just launched there at the beginning of the month. And joining me in the studio this evening, I have got Vincent Kelly, the man himself, a busy man. Vincent, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Jean. Good to be here.
And you've just come from the RCC where you did a concert with the Donegal Chamber Orchestra. You're their conductor as well.
Well, it's Donegal Youth Orchestra.
Oh, Donegal Youth Orchestra, beg your pardon, yes.
So it was a Christmas concert, and we had wonderful guests from Glenty's Choir, a marvellous group of young people, and their teachers, Anne, were fantastic, and a group of Ukrainian students of a Ukrainian guitarist who had only started in May to play, and they were fabulous. And then there was a classical guitar guy, Manus, who's moved here, I think, from London or Scotland, I'm not sure, and lovely harping as well from the Columkill. I think they're called the Columkill harpists, and then the orchestra in the second half. So it was wonderful. And then some communal singing at the end of favourite Christmas pieces. So it was a great night.
Well, you're a native of Dublin, but you're no stranger to Donegal because, as I say, you're the conductor of the Donegal Youth Orchestra, and you've also commissioned a number of pieces for Donegal to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Columkill, and that little piece that we played there is taken from that composition.
That's right, I was very lucky to be commissioned to write a piece, and it turns out it's almost 2 hours long, so there's 20 parts to it. It includes a narration in Irish and English, a solo uilleann pipist, harpist, Irish harpist singer, that's Nulligo Brollig, who's just brought a CD herself, the Donegal Youth Orchestra at the time, the Donegal Youth Choir, and Megan Armitage then was the narrator. And then we had also a tenor soloist whose name just escapes me at the moment, it'll come to me, and it was performed first in March, just after COVID, finished in March of 2022, and then also was the closing part of the Errigal Festival that year. So on the CD, I think I've put 5 pieces from that, and 3 of them are with uilleann pipes. So the connections to Donegal go way back to 2007, I think, when I first came here. I won a commission to write a piece of music as part of the peace process for young people from Donegal, Derry and Londonderry. So they were coming from, and we all went out to Garton, and one of the pieces from that, which is a jazzy piece, is on the CD as well. And then the following year I was asked to come up and do the Donegal, help out with do orchestral and other instruments on the Donegal Summer Music School. And while I was up there, I was approached by the manager of the Donegal Music Education Partnership. At the time was Yvonne Ferguson, who's now the head of the Contemporary Music Centre, about doing the rehearsals with the youth orchestra for a couple of months in preparation for a visit with them from the National Symphony Orchestra. So I came for a couple of months, and then she asked me would I do Christmas, and then it began to dawn on me, well, they don't really seem to have someone, so we put in place an arrangement. And I love coming up so much, and I'm really lucky that my wife comes with me, and she does the driving, so that helps hugely. And we come up every 2 weeks and rehearse, and the orchestra's just gone from strength to strength, and it's wonderful. And it's great because in Donegal, it seems that everybody puts on a Donegal shirt, and so we have everyone coming together, and the orchestra's done wonderful concerts on our own, but with Alton and with others that have Manus Lunny and people like that, and in Greenon in the Cultural Centre, out in Armore Island a number of times with the Armore Pipe Band, and in the National Concert Hall. So it's been great, and it's just wonderful to be here. And Donegal is very special to us and to me, and I find a lot of inspiration here for the music, and especially for that piece.
And where did the interest and the love for music spring from? Was it by accident, or was it by design? Well,
my very first experience of music was when I was 3 years old, and I remember this very clearly. I come from a very small house in Dublin City, a place called Smith's Cottages, and there were only 3 rooms, and I shared a room at that time with my sister, one of my sisters and one of my brothers and an uncle. We were all packed in tight, and there was a radio in our room on top of a wardrobe, and my mother used to come in the morning and turn that on. And one morning she turned it on, and this piece of music came on, and it just filled me. And I was 3 years of age. It affected every part of my being. And then I went to school in the Christian Brothers in Western Row in the inner city of Dublin. And it just so happened that when I went there, a teacher came and started teaching music. So that's how I started. So it was completely accidental. And I was 14 or 15 before I realised that piece of music was Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, And so it there was something there all of that time in me. And then when I was about 15, I think I wrote my first piece of music. And that was very harrowing because I think any creative person, when you create, it's like taking your heart and putting it out in front of you. And then anybody with daggers or anything can cut it to pieces, So it takes a lot of confidence, and the life of an artist, a creative artist, can be quite lonely in the sense that you spend a lot of time in your own head working out stuff and working out ideas and then having to put it all down in place,
Yeah, and that I just am fascinated by how just a melody may come into your head and how that then evolves into a full orchestral arrangement. Like how does the process start for you, Vincent?
Well, usually it's just an inspiration comes into my head. I give you an example. One of the pieces we did tonight was a piece I wrote just 6 months ago called the Leonard Kennedy Waltz, and I remember exactly when it happened. I was coming back from rehearsal here from the Regional Cultural Centre, and I was going down a hill and this tune came into my head, and I went back to where I was staying and I wrote it down in pencil, and then over the next week I orchestrated it. And the tune actually is the easiest part of it because the tune is just the one line. It's what you then have to add to that, the harmonies and the bass and the rhythm and all of that stuff. That's the bit that takes most of the time. I begin the process by hand because I feel a kind of spiritual connection to me when I'm writing down stuff by hand, in hand, and that's why. So my melodies are usually written in a book, and then I transpose them into a computer. Then, and that helps then to actually score it, because a lot of it is repetitive, but just in different clefs and different places for the different instruments. And then the more instruments you have available, then the more scope you have for making it bigger and bigger. So it's a process that kind of is like the big orchestral pieces, and this album is full of them, are kind of like you start off with a little chestnut or an oak nut, and it grows down to be this big rooted blossom, or that birds and all sorts of things come into your mind and into people's minds.
And the CD, now I have a copy of it here, Music of People and Place, and it's with the RTE Concert Orchestra, and also with Mark Redmond, that we just heard on that piece we played on Ullin Pipes, and so that piece was just a beautiful, haunting piece. But there are 18 tracks on the album, and there's a wee story nearly with all of them, Vincent.
Yes, there is, and that's why I call it Music of People Place, because all of the pieces are inspired by people or places. There's one that was played a little while recently because it's John F. Kennedy, John Fitzgerald, the torch still burns brightly, and I'm a Kennedy too, and but there's no actual connection that I know of. It goes way back, although sometimes people think there is. And that was commissioned for the 50th anniversary of his assassination. So this was a chance now to record that for coming up to the time of the 60th anniversary. So, and that was first performed in New Ross, where his family came from. And a lot of people don't realise that John F. Kennedy came to Ireland in 1947. Came in 45 as well to interview De Valera. He came in 47 specifically himself to look for his family roots. So he went to County Wexford with letters, and he went knocking on doors and eventually found the family. And he took pictures at the time. So his, often the 63 visit, where he's eating or having tea with his cousins there, but he'd actually been there before. And if you go to the centre there, you'll see the photographs that he took at the time himself, So that's one piece. The opening piece is a piece called Where the North Wind Blows, and again that was a peace commission piece, a cross-border intergenerational project, which originally involved a pipe band from Breedy and Derry and a brass band from Strabane and people from Donegal as well, and it was performing on both sides of the border. It's actually dedicated to my mother, but she got sick the week before we performed it and died quickly, and then wasn't, before the second performance. Actually, the second performance was at her funeral. But it's also interesting because Markin on that particular track plays the B flat uilleann pipes, and he reckons, he's a lecturer now also in the Conservatory of Music at Technical University of Dublin, that it's the only concert music piece he knows in the whole world that's written for B flat pipes. And the B flat pipes are less strident than the D pipes. So it's very, very, very suited to that sort of playing. But then it has the whole full orchestral treatment all around it.
And you were telling me that one of the tracks, the Birth Cloak, that I was going to play tonight, because it's lovely as well, it's dedicated to Sister
Concepta. Yeah. So and she was a nun that came from Kinsale, I think, to Ballyshannon. And people tell of her coming because it was very unusual in that she drove a sports car with no top on it, and she had a big scarf around her neck that was flowing out the back of her. But she had a huge influence on music, classical music in Donegal, and setting up of the Donegal Music School and the Donegal Music Education Partnership. And inspiring a lot of young people to take up music. And the story of the Birth Cloak then with Columkill is that the story goes, as I understand it, that before his birth, his mother had a vision of, was visited by an angel and had a vision of this cloak beautiful cloak spreading out before her across the land. And then eventually it goes away from her, and then she's sad, and the angel says to her, well, don't be sad, because the son will have many, many followers. And the image of the cloak spreading out, like, it's very much stuck with me in terms of Sister Concepta, because she passed away during COVID, but that influence of spreading out all across the county and bringing classical music, Donegal is full of every type of music, and it's fantastic. And I love the way it all intermixes and builds on each element. And like that notion of the music spreading across, and her influence is what inspired that piece. And it's also a very meditative piece, I think,
And you were saying just before we went on air that this is not your first CD, but it's your first CD with the RTE concert orchestra.
Yes, it is. They have played some of my music before. I was commissioned by them to write a piece called Dublin Overture to My City, and they played that, and they played one of the other pieces, Arbor Hill, that's about 1916 on there as well. But no, this CD is all my own doing, in the sense that I've done all it, and I hired the orchestra. I went down and talked to the manager and hired the studio out there, and then conducted them and produced it. All I must say, with the great help and love of my wife, who one of the pieces, Gra, is dedicated to, and it was a mammoth task. I didn't realise it when I took it on, that how big it would be. I didn't expect that in 2 days recording we'd get 80, and we actually recorded 19 tracks, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. I thought if we get 10 or 12 that'll be doing great, but we actually got 18, and I think that's down to the organisation we put into it, and checking all the music beforehand. 1,000 pages of music, 100,000 notes, make sure they were all right, so that you don't get stuck in rehearsal and recording with trying to fix things. There was nothing to fix. We just got in and did it. So there's 18 tracks on this. That's the CD, but it's been issued digitally, and there's 19 tracks, because we had the opportunity to record the Columkill's Lament separately with just Mark Redmond playing the uilleann pipes, and in that setting he was able to use all the drones and everything like that. So that's kind of the bonus track at the end of it. There's another one there that's it's called The First Steam Train in Ireland, and it's about a journey on steam train, the first steam train that ran between Dún Laoghaire and Dublin, which is actually the first commuter train in the world. And we were in Japan earlier this year. My daughter-in-law is from Japan originally, Irish mother and Japanese father, with our grandchildren, and we went to the Kyoto Train Museum, and I actually recorded the sound of a steam engine, and it's on the track as well, And our little grandson Enda just loves trains, and he actually falls asleep to that piece of music every night. And it's such a noisy piece. It's amazing that he does, but it's amazing to see how he does do that.
Well, the CD was just launched there at the beginning of the month, and it will make a lovely Christmas present for people who like classical music and who know your work, Vincent. It's available digitally, but you can, I'm sure, buy the hard copy of it as well.
Well, no, it's not out in hard copy.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an American classical music label, Navona, that released it, and they released it digitally. But they sent me 100 CDs, just sort of for my own use, or to give to wonderful people like you. See, you know. So I may bring out a hard copy of CDs. I'm not sure. You know, the last CD that I brought out. So this is my 10th CD of music, but the last one arrived a week after COVID started. All the CDs arrived into the house, and sure. And then when that was a project that was public art project, so I couldn't give the CDs away because people were telling me they don't have CDs. So many people don't have CDs anymore. But it's available on all the digital platforms, the Spotify's, the iTunes, all of that sort of thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out. As I said, fascinating talking to you. I could go on for another half hour, but I see the clock's just going to beat me. And every success with the CD and with the future career and composing. I'm sure we'll hear lots of new pieces from you in the future.
Thank you so much, Jean.
To mark the decade of